Hi, welcome to Culinary Capers here at Shell Point. I'm David Lee, and today I'm going to make a special salad. Those of you who watch the show, watch my shows, know that I really love to capture recipes from people. And one of our favorite places here in Florida is Disney World. And we love Citrico's restaurant, which is in the Grand Floridian. And the chef Dominic Fleoni, shared with me his recipe for the crab salad. And it just was delicious. My wife and I loved it. So I'm going to share Chef Fleoni's recipe for you today with a few added little touches to it. So we'll start with the crab meat. And he wants us to have 4 ounces. And you can guess this if you want, but I thought it'd be neat to show you the scale that I use. And what I've learned from the cooking classes I've taken is that it's much better to weigh things than it is to do using your measuring spoons and measuring cups. They tell me, maybe I have to do this sometime, they tell me if you measured out 4 or 5 cups of flour and then you measured what is equivalent to that, you'd find out the weights are much different in each one of them, just a matter of how tightly it packs itself and how much air. So anyway, whoop, she went off on me. Today we're going to have 4 ounces of crab meat. So with most of these scales, my bowl is 10 ounces. You press the off button again and it goes to 0. There we go. Okay, so I've now got my 4 ounces of crab meat, and I don't need the scale anymore, so we'll set it up here out of the way. Now it calls for some lettuce, and this recipe is going to make 2 salads for us now. So it calls for some lettuce. It calls for some radishes, which we'll come back to. It calls for Italian parsley, which I've already chopped up ahead of time. It's going to call for some chives, and we'll chop up some chives for you here. And it calls for some asparagus. And finally, half an avocado. It seems like a lot of ingredients. You don't have to use them all. Okay, so let's get started. And first I want to talk to you about the vinaigrette he uses. And this is actually in cookbooks. It's a very simple vinaigrette. It's 1 part lemon and 3 parts olive oil. So if we have 2 ounces of lemon juice, we're going to want 6 ounces of extra virgin olive oil. And the recipe I'm going to share with you from the chef, and I'll give you his recipe, calls to put it in a blender. I don't always do that. I have this handy little shaker that I picked up in one of the gadget shops, but an old fruit jar works just as well. Put it in here and just shake the tar out of it. And I mean really shake it for like a minute. So now I want to show you how he calls for diced radishes, and it actually calls for 2 of them. So I'm just going to show you how I do it. Everyone has their own way, and I have nice sharp knives. Now, for me, I just stack them all up here. It can be a little tricky, and then I'll turn it this way so maybe you can see better. And I just dice them this way, and then while I'm still holding it together, keep my fingers back. Now this won't be as perfect as you get in a restaurant, but it's my simple way of dicing. Okay? Now it calls for some chives. And I'm going to guess about 4 chives. Depends how much flavor you want in it. But I'm going to cut off the yellow ends. Then cut it in 2. Turn it around and just start chopping it. There's probably other ways to do it, but this is just how I learned to do it. There's my chives. Now the last thing we call, his recipe calls for using white asparagus. Well, they didn't have any white asparagus, and so I'm just using regular green asparagus. And his recipe only calls for 2 asparagus spears for lunch, but we're going to turn this into a dinner. So I've got a few more asparagus. So he wants to cut the tips off like this, and those are for presentation at the end. So we'll put those here, and then chop these up into nice small pieces. Okay, now the final thing we have to get ready is our avocado, which we have left over from lunch. And he calls for a half an avocado. So I cut it so there's 6 slices, so there'll be 3 per person. I'll put it back on its plate. So let's go through my checklist. I got the crab meat ready, the lettuce is ready, the radishes. I think we're ready to put this together. So let's start by getting a couple plates out here. Okay, so now we have our nice washed lettuce, and we have our vinaigrette, but first I want to put about half of the radishes in here, and half of the chives, and all of the little diced pieces of asparagus. Okay. So shake it nicely. He only calls for a couple tablespoons, and I can see why. So we don't want to overpower it. Now we'll mix it all up. And while they fall down to the bottom, they're nice and coated with a vinaigrette, and they add some color on the top. Nice radishes. Now, let's put our crab meat in here. A little bit of the parsley, and then a little bit of the parsley on the lettuce. Now the rest of our radishes. And our chives. Probably should have put these in a bowl, but I like getting my hands on my food, if you haven't told. So that's my crab meat, and he calls for just a little bit of the vinaigrette. Once again, I don't want to overpower the crab meat, so that's probably just about a tablespoon. So, and I'm kind of breaking it up a little bit here. Now then, I'm going to use my handy dandy clean piece of PVC 3-inch to make a nice circle on here, and put about half of it in here, like that. And then the other half over here. So there, now we have our 2 plates ready, or almost ready. So now then, he just puts 3 pieces of avocado around each one of them. And then on top, we're just going to nicely decorate with the asparagus spears. So that's his primary recipe, but let me show you a little bit about what I'm going to do now. Margie and I like to turn this into a nice light summer supper. And we love pickled beets. So I'm going to add a few pickled beets. Gets a nice little color. And Margie doesn't, but I like nice sweet pickles. So I'm going to have a couple pickles for me. So there you have it. This is Citrico's salad. And to top it all off, we should put the hat here. So there you have it, Citrico's salad. And I want to thank the folks at Disney for being so wonderful to me, and I look forward to coming back and trying another recipe soon. Hope you enjoyed this today, and happy eating. Bye now.